Well, hey everybody, it's been a little bit. Welcome to the Clusterpuck Podcast, part of the MHRT Network here at Center Ice. I am Nick. Brit's just waiting in the lobby here. Just having a couple of technical glitches, so we'll get here in just a second. First off, apologies. I know we were originally going to do a show right after the Four Nations Championship yesterday. Just had some complications and ended up not working out, so we pushed it back. What we thought was going to be after overtime, and then that didn't work out, and then we were like, okay, we can do it tomorrow, and then again more complications, but we're here. We're at least able to get you something this week before the resuming of the season, the regular season for the Colorado Avalanche. Before we get started, though, don't forget to like and subscribe, follow the MHRT Network so you can get notified when shows like the Clusterpuck Podcast go live. You can do so on the various social media platforms of your choosing. And if you want to follow us, we ask that you please do so by following us on at the Clusterpuck Podcast on Facebook and at Clusterpuck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Okay, let's see real fast. Let me just check and see. Let's see. Is it there? Yeah, now we're having a problem with the link. Go figure. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. Okay, so I don't want to get into too much depth regarding the Four Nations, because obviously I want to get Brit's input as well. But wow, I don't know what to say other than just wow. The Four Nations face-off break, in my opinion, was a huge success. And honestly, in my opinion, it's something that they need to keep permanently. And I'm hoping we might have even seen the last of the All-Star break, if you want my complete opinion. I'll explain why in just a minute, but additionally, oh, here's Brit. Here we go. We're back. There we go.
How's it going?
I'm so sorry with all this problems and stuff.
And I was thinking we weren't going live for some reason, so I wasn't like freaking out about it, and I restarted my thing, so I'm
Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
Doing
Again,
my stuff.
I already did my groveling for about 3 minutes.
I kept like sitting there thinking, do I have to be ashamed if we just say like that sucked and it's not fun? Just be losers? I mean, what do you I don't really know what else there is to do.
No kidding.
Because it's not like the Avs where we can game plan or look back and compare. So yeah, it just sucks. But like I told you, that's about all I've got, is that I think that when the Olympics come, we'll find that this was a wonderful thing for those guys to carry for the next 2 years and propel them into a very
I think it made the U.S. look even more forward to the Olympics.
Yeah.
Just because it's going to be fueled with revenge now at this point. It's international competition, right?
Well, and a gold medal is always going to be better than,
that trophy lift slowly got less and less enthusiastic at every handoff.
One of my main takeaways was someone needs to go to jail for the joy that they gave me and took away thinking that Luke Hughes was coming, because the Hughes boys are just my boys. Like, the tournament, I think, was a huge success, and there's very few occasions that like the beat writers and stuff are praising Bettman in the NHL, but I got a lot out of it. Like, and I had a lot new like pathways of people that I will die for McAvoy now. And he's kind of, I feel like, Boston's Lehkonen, where they've always known that he's, invaluable, but now you can't, when you watch Boston and he's good, but you see them different when you're invested in them. So I'm excited. And now I love Charlie McAvoy. Jake Gensel, like, so cool. He was a muskie. So we had a extra strong push for him. And did you expect Jake Gensel to be like the forefront of
Jake Gensel was, I don't want to say the dark horse hero, but he was that unsung man of just, I can't believe how good he played. Like
And
it was
it's not like
incredible.
loud or really like notable in any fashion. I mean, he's just smart, and yeah, it's good. It's good for him. It's nice to see people show up for the occasion, as long as they're not Jordan Bennington. Why couldn't I really wish that Brad Marchand would have scored on that point, because I feel like McDavid winning and Bennington like having his comeback are just the bleh,
Yeah.
bleh.
Nope, that makes sense. So let's kind of go through the games here. Obviously, as you guys are well aware, Canada were the ultimate champions of the first ever Four Nations Face-Off tournament. But again, it caused such a stir on so many levels, and I was great. The whole thing was great.
A lot
So
of
the
new weird feelings.
first
Kachuk, man.
game, the first game of the tournament between Canada and Sweden went to overtime. Canada does end up winning it with a Mitch Marner goal. However, opening this one, I have to give complete and total props to Canada. The opening goal of the
Oh,
tournament,
ugh.
Nathan McKinnon,
So-
assisted by guess who? Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid. It was a
And where did the
thing
pass before that
of
come from?
beauty.
Kale McCarr.
That would make the
McCarr.
only thing
Oh.
better. Yep.
Yeah,
Which I'm
that's
pretty sure McCarr probably got the tertiary assist if they ever started
yeah.
recording that. Like
That's a
that
goal
power
that's
play
been
goal.
played for 100 years. Like that's like the
It
1980.
took 14 seconds, I think, for them to get the puck and then just boom, 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 goal. Like it was. Oh,
It was kind of mortifying, and it was like we're gonna lose 65-0.
we just might. That power play was effective.
At least
And what was interesting though is after that game, they showed a video of that exact same play being discussed and practiced by
yeah.
McKinnon, Crosby, and McDavid. So
Yeah.
it worked to perfection, and it played
Yeah,
out
that
exactly how they
backhand
practiced
pass
it.
was Crosby is,
It was
and
beautiful.
we saw him kind of fade through the weekend, but Crosby is so much more impressive to me. And I know that Gretzky is what he is, but I truly will. Oh, and my child is named McKinnon, but honestly, I think that Crosby might be the best, most whole athlete of all sports that ever lived ever. He's so smart and generous and kind and hardworking. Yeah. And my favorite thing about him is he's a first liner that plays like a third liner. Like it's just that pass was so incredible. And I'm kind of wrestling with, we talked about him staying in the league to stay in shape for the Olympics. And that would probably be a pretty good send-off point regardless. But it's really weird to think about where he might be come the next Olympics, because he really did fade off in the weekend, don't you think? And it might be questionable as to whether he's like kind of a liability as being a forerunner in that, he's not going to be a first line up there with McDavid and McKinnon because.
Well, I mean, if anything, though, I mean, he had. Did he have any goals? I don't think he had any goals in the tournament, but he had plenty of key assists.
He had that open net one, didn't he? The last open net.
Oh, that's right. That's absolutely right.
Which is like the most hardworking, well-earned open net goal you've ever seen.
It really was. He was very much rewarded for that. But again, this game, Team Canada, obviously we're going to be focusing on them a bit because obviously with 3 Avalanche players on that team, they're going to have most of the spotlight. I thought in this game, again, I thought Taves was set up in great spots. I don't think he was much of a liability in this particular game. Cale McCarr, there were a couple times where it's like, Howard, did you not score? Right?
It's like, it must be really daunting for Taves and McCarr, though, to have a line of both Kachucks. Like, that has to be just mentally and physically, I don't know. Because they were out there with them together a lot.
They were. And the thing is, like, as the game went on, obviously it was 2-0 at the end of that first period, 3-1 at the end of 2, but backstorms Sweden.
Yeah.
Right. Which I did not see coming. I thought this game was going to end like 4-1 or something like that. And Sweden comes marching right back, and they had a couple of chances to win it in overtime. That overtime period, mind you, is 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
And that felt like forever.
Sorry, I kept going back to Canada. So Michael was saying he thinks that they should play out a whole period of overtime for games like this. What's your take? I think I do
Oh,
agree
just
with
like
them.
just standard like cup playoffs type,
Yeah, not
5-on-5,
sudden
20-minute
death,
periods.
5-on-5, and you do a whole
Um,
set amount of time.
the championship game, that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's more so what I'm,
Uh,
because
I
I
can see
understand
arguments for both
regular season,
sides, but
but
I'm more in the camp 3-on-3, but maybe not a 10-minute
three
overtime
on three for
period.
overtime in playoff games or in, so for anything, I think playoff and after should all be 5-on-5, and I think like final round
Sure.
should be 5-on-5 full period. But like 3-on-3s in regular seasons, I don't care about that.
Yeah. Yeah. This one was tough because I mean, again, I can see why, because this is a tournament. You don't want it to just go up to a 3-on-3 kind of crapshoot. So
Especially when it's a so much more affected. Like the 3-on-3 is so it has such a bigger sway when you consider
yeah.
it's groups of people that all play like hockey instead of like
Hmm.
a melded group of styles. And like Finland and the more like defensive, not as, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
Yeah.
gonna very much inhibit them compared
No,
to,
that makes sense. I you know what? I think I've swayed my choice. I think 5-on-5, 20-minute periods would have
yeah.
been the play. Um, but that would have made it a lot more straining on the guys playing. So that way, when they do resume regular
Since
season
Tim McKinnon had
play,
the first
but
over.
at the same time, I mean, games are games, So
Yeah.
I don't know. However,
Oh,
Mitch
hold on.
Marner,
3-2-1 system. That's my other
uh,
one I want to hit you with, or I'll forget it.
yes, but is
Want
it
to do
right if
that
we talk about that after the games?
for the
Because I
NHL?
have opinions on that.
Okay.
Okay. But so Canada wins that one in overtime. Moving on to the next game, USA pounded the crap out of Finland. Wasn't much of a game, especially in that third period.
No, it's so hard to get invested in it. You're like, it just,
Yep. Okay. Then we moved on to Finland beating Sweden in overtime. Awesome. I'm happy for the Finns that they actually weren't just the laughing stock. Um,
especially when I just didn't think that Sweden was much better than them. It just seemed
yeah.
like they, I guess, were more opportunistic with chances. But I tried to like cultivate that feeling because I guess I didn't realize until I heard so many people discussing it how much they very, very much absolutely despise each other and
Oh
were
yeah.
having their own war, regardless of whether anybody paid
Crazy.
attention to them on the media. They were
Yeah.
totally irrelevant, but
Like
they
they
didn't
said,
care.
which player, they asked the Finnish players and then they asked the Swedish players, which player from the opposing team would you like to
Was
have on your team? And a lot of them said none. Like, I don't
Nico
want any
or
of them.
no, Lehkonen said nobody. Was it Lehkonen
Yeah,
who said Gabe Landeskog? Lehkonen said
I know,
Landeskog.
right? He said Landeskog, which is like, okay. But
Was that
like,
you who told me that? Because I was laughing so hard. But
yeah. But I was like, okay, but like
he's
really.
the sweetest. They're
Speaking
very,
of
very bitter.
Arturi Lehkonen, was he aware that there was a tournament going on?
No, I don't think so. But the thing
That
is,
is very unlike Lehkonen to just kind of go through the motions in the game,
but
you
I think
know?
that he's like so well tuned to have different style players around him to thrive by pushing other people to thriving and then cleaning up their messes, I just
Yeah.
think that he's such a niche role because that's what I always see. I was kind of thinking about like I don't think most people know how valuable Lehkonen is to us. Like we would probably pay that guy like $10 million if it came
Oh,
down to it.
sure. Oh,
Losing him
100%.
might be worse than Miko. I honestly, but did anybody stand out in Finland, or is that just how they play? Like, is it just such
The
a
standouts in Finland. Now, that's a good question. So, if I were to say anything, oh man, who would it be? There were a couple. Mikael Granlund was one.
yeah? Man, I don't know. Dallas paid a lot,
And
but
then, oh man, Lundell.
exactly. If you have to think that hard,
I'd say Lundell was the other, but that was just the thing, is they were all kind of the share the puck mentality, so it was really hard to
yeah,
keep track of any one guy. But I'd say for sure Granlund,
it's
with a
hard to
couple
say
of great
if that
goals. And
speaks to their working togetherness and like identity, or if that just speaks to their lack of
yeah,
interest.
but that's the thing, is they kind of band together and their chemistry was pretty all right.
Yeah.
Because obviously the USA and Canada were your power hitters, and then Sweden was maybe the dark horse, and Finland was kind of like the they wrote them off.
Yeah.
But it ended up being at the end of these games, until the last game, US was locked in, and then it was a 3-way tie between Canada, Finland, and Sweden, which was crazy.
I feel like, is Finland not kind of a good representation of like when they talk about like the concept of putting an NHL together, an NHL team together? The difference between like a playoff team and a Stanley Cup winning team is filling roles so perfectly. And like, if they're, you know what I mean? If everybody is playing well and together and understands each other, you need differences. I don't know. I just thought it was kind of interesting.
No, I think that's exactly right. And I think I would say the European team, Sweden and Finland, displayed a better chemistry despite not having as good a skill as the US and Canada. Is what I'm going to say to that.
The word that I'm trying, like, starts with a D. Like very not even robotic, but it's definitely, you know what it is, and they have.
Yeah.
And then if you think about Finland against like Finnish teams playing each other, it's probably gutsy and maybe a little bit boring, but a battle of that's got to be like a battle of the Finnish styles playing each other, and that's why.
Oh, absolutely.
With America and Canada playing each other, kamikazes, and like we have more people to have a mix of styles, but generally focusing on speed. I think that first game was like one of the most excited games I've ever watched, like with no context of who the people were and just, I don't know.
Well, and that actually brings me to my next point, which we'll actually just talk about here, was the first matchup between Canada and the United States. Within the first 9 seconds of that game, we had 3 fights. Have we not
talked about Four Nations at all? I don't know why I was thinking we had. Nick, losing it. I'm losing it. I don't know why I was thinking we had already talked about the first one right before we got off, but
not yet. Oh
my God, that first game.
3 fights. No, you're good. 3 fights in 9 seconds. And that right there was the move, Brit.
Was that exactly who Allie anticipated JT Miller would go find and start a fight with?
I don't think Parayko was on anyone's bingo card. It was kind of just he happened to be in the wrong spot at the wrong time.
I couldn't have even told you what team Parayko was on or anything that he's ever done notable, but I do know, and I have always known that he is a huge, huge man. And
No
JT
kidding.
Miller punched himself in the face.
And that sounds about right. But those fights alone caught the attention of the world.
NBA All-Star Game, see ya.
It got people's eyes going, wait a minute, like heads turned, eyeballs got glued. That was probably one of the wisest decisions as far as fights are concerned. It's probably in the history of hockey.
It was so well calculated and played out, and all Kachuk brothers, like their dad was the one who had
figure, right?
How many? Did you hear somebody ask like what he thought about the penalties, something? He said those two are hooligans, and like then I found out he had the most penalties and the most fights of any.
Yeah. So
I think a lot of people saw a lot more like depth of Brady and Matt. And I think that this may be the propelling thing to make Brady want to get out of Ottawa. I think he wants to win.
However, a lot of Ottawa players ended up being really good in this tournament, which was true. Like Sanderson and Kachuk, and like you're just sitting there going like, okay, wait a minute, you're really good in this international setting, but on the team aspect, what is going on?
Austin Matthews. It's so weird, the people that disappeared. I love Jack Hughes gone. Austin
Who's
Matthews.
That? I forgot who that was.
He is not someone who is covering Connor
McDavid. Boy, howdy. I don't know what to say. But a great game, that US Canada. So US skates away 3-1 win, and you're feeling great, right? Like we're ready. US have locked themselves into that championship game, but you're exactly right. By this time, it was noticeable that the noticeables were unnoticeable.
Yeah.
Mainly Matthews and Hughes, people to that extent. You had Chris Kreider scoring goals. You had or Dylan Larkin, excuse me, scoring goals.
McAvoy.
And,
That check on
and
McDavid, I think he may have like nearly lost his soul there for a moment. I'm
potentially
impressed that McDavid got up and that McAvoy's shoulder was only dislocated and then infected, as opposed to just being. There was a lot. That was one of the most distinctly tone-setting games that I've ever seen, which is incredible when you consider it's a group of guys that aren't planning and, you know what I mean, scheming. I mean, they put it together so fast that it was a huge statement. And I'm just really glad they won, because it would have been kind of weird if they didn't. It would have set a weird tone.
Yeah, I think so as well, especially like in Montreal and like all those things that kind of made that hatred just kind of build. I thought it was great. And and assuming that it was going to be Canada and the US in that championship game, which it ended up being, you knew it was going to be in for a really good
just
game.
Thrown it and made it. Would we have been able to throw it to where we played Sweden if we had lost in regulation?
Yes, if Finland won.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
And that was just it. Okay. I mean, almost. In fact, let's talk about that. So Monday, right? The goal was, if Finland wins, then it's down to Finland and Sweden, who plays the US. Mm-hmm. If Canada wins, they're in no matter what, right? So that game for Canada was closer to the end than it should have been. So Nathan MacKinnon, 2 goals himself, right? I mean, the guy is just absolutely.
This one was like
crazy.
There could have been a brick wall literally covering the front of the net, and he would have. I mean,
would have scored.
There's times that you can tell that the chickpeas are kicking in hot, like just next level God mode. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know how people channel that, and I wish I could, but yeah, that was one of those like 4 or 5 moments that we've seen in his career.
He was exactly that man-possessed type game where we've seen it plenty, time in and time out. When it's those must-win games, he just goes berserk and scores 7,000 goals. Mm-hmm. We saw that again in Nathan MacKinnon in this game, because again, they knew what was on the line, right? Yeah. So it was 4-0 at the end of 2, and you're thinking, okay, well, that's game.
Oh my God.
Good job, everybody, and move on. Finland had other plans, though. 3 goals, 2 of which were 23 seconds apart.
That was exhilarating. And I don't think the tickets were cheap enough for people to be leaving the game early because they're pissy pants. But oh my God, I was ready to tune out, and I just was kind of hanging out. And then I was like, this is gonna happen. And then the end, what was it that happened? It felt like there was something happened that they kind of got deprived their last chance. What?
I think it was like was it a missed call or a missed stoppage? Is that what it was?
Like, didn't they fight for an icing that they
something like that? Yeah. That would have given them that. Oh, that's right, because it would have set them back up in their offensive zone, and Finland had a crap ton of momentum.
Yeah, and you can say that it doesn't matter, but like, dude, they just scored 20 seconds apart. Tell me it's never like it does matter. They're vibing.
So with almost a minute and a half left, here you're sitting 4-3, all of a sudden, right?
Canada has to win in regulation, right?
And Canada needs to win in regulation. Right, so they're still up 1, and then the heroics of Sidney Crosby, go figure, right?
You're talking about
where he gets hit, grabs the puck, puts it down as fast as he can, and shoots it into an empty net. You have to give Sidney Crosby all the credit on this goal.
Honestly, one of the most impressive things I saw in the weekend was an open net goal as a man is trying to climb him like a bear on a tree. Like, it was. It's hard to really be impressed by it. An empty net goal, but really that was not empty calorie. No merchant tones there. No, I just when I saw it at first, I didn't know who it was, and I was like, Of course, like there's literally no one else that would put that much willpower into an insurance goal with a minute left from half ice
Mhm.
and do it.
Yep.
Like it's just, I don't know.
No, 100%. And again, the Finns knew exactly what was on the line too. So kudos to them for not giving up, because again, 4-0 against
I
Team
know,
Canada, who's as
but
potent and as deep as all get out. Good
yeah,
for them. Great
yeah.
for them. Right.
Mhm.
But again, Lindell and Granlund with those 2 goals, the two,
I know.
the 3 goals.
It's weird because a lot of the tournament, it felt like Granlund was really visible, but not like, I don't know.
He kind of only showed up in those key moments.
Yeah.
I could
Yeah,
see
he's
that.
interesting. I'm curious to see how he is going to continue his season.
Yeah. Okay, and then the second game of that night was Sweden beating the United States in a non-really swaying game, but there was still a national pride on the line.
Yeah.
U.S. had, I think they wrung it off the iron maybe 1,000 times.
Thank God.
But in the end, how again, it's in someone's DNA to make Ursun look like a Vezina Trophy
Oh my
caliber
God.
goalie.
That's what I said is like, we're going to lose to the Flyers like third goalie. And Mac's like, why would we bring him? I'm like, because there's only like 100 goalies in a small country. Like you go
Seriously though.
really fast. When you get to the NHL level, we're gonna be like pulling from bantams here pretty quick. Like
No, seriously.
not that many goalies.
It was crazy. But so Chris Kreider gets the party started 35 seconds in, and I initially I thought like we're
I
gonna
was like,
roll.
wait, he's here. He's
Yeah.
actually playing, and he's gonna do
Because they gave him the spot to play, and he took advantage
That was
of it.
his snub
There
win.
you go.
And then he went
all
wide.
goals were scored in the first period, by the way.
It was
Just
boring.
Nyquist with one at 13:39, and then just in the dying minute of the period, Jesper Bratt, and that ended up being the final score. But that's, again, it didn't really matter from a points perspective or anything like that, but there was still the national pride on the line, and the U.S. in that third period did show up and put effort. So it wasn't like it was like, we don't care. They did care.
Yeah.
And they hit the iron about 8.5 million times. That you're just like, what is going on?
That's like, I thought that Kale was like particularly cursed, but maybe it's just us when we watch our teams. It's whoever we're cheering for, because I don't see like those posts and the missed nets like hurt my insides at times this weekend when you're literally needing just someone to breathe a little harder and it's going to go in.
Yeah.
But with Finland being done, though, I just wanted to say, I think one of the biggest, most disappointing performances, maybe changing the way people view him, is Patrick Laine. Like, what his year and the trajectory and the path that he's taken is, and I know that he's had his like mental health battles, but it's coming to a point where I don't know if his lack of consistency is going to make him employable in the NHL much longer. And it's wild because Pierre-Luc Dubois is thriving on a team that's not supposed to be good, with guys that are apparently the kind of guy he needs to play for around, it's just crazy. Laine was my biggest takeaway from that game, or that weekend and that game. But like, I don't know. I was disappointed because I thought this was it. Like, he is coming back, baby. And like, Rantanen wasn't loud this weekend really either, or weak, I suppose.
Yeah, he had a goal, but it was kind of like, I expected you to have like 10, because we know Mikko, right? But but that's, again, you're posting him with other star players. Obviously, all the noise is going to come from everyone and not just one, Yeah. So, anyways, the stage then became set, Brit, for the great game that everyone was looking forward to. And when I say that, it's now with the brand new fans, all the eyes from all the sports, the rematch of Canada and the United States.
Making it so that the whole entire rest of the world is cheering against us, and we're just cheering
potentially. And it did not disappoint, Brit.
Yeah.
Despite the outcome, obviously Canada winning in overtime 3-2, the game itself lived exactly up to all the hype that was being put around it.
Well, and as Avs fans, we get to take away the joy in watching the team that just, shut down one dream. I feel like this is going to be a springboard to taste that for McKinnon and Makar and bring that drive into the locker room. It feels like a great turning point for them to seriously crank it up from here on out. And it seems like a good time to really, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We were saying we have like the weirdest dynamic with being American Avs fans because
all of your players are from Canada, but you want US and
we need them to win, but we would also like to have Canada not have.
That's why it kind of hurt less too, because McKinnon ended up getting the tournament MVP.
If they're gonna win, I'm glad he kicked ass, even if people are annoying and say he didn't deserve it. McKinnon was loud this weekend, and McDavid was good. Yeah. But
he made plenty of noise and scored goals, and he did exactly what McKinnon would do, Big takeaway in this one, though, obviously, with the Connor McDavid overtime goal. My big thing, so 2 takeaways from this, right? When he scored and they began their celebrations, like gloves came off, like they celebrated like they just won the overtime of Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals.
I know,
right?
It's so cute.
So what that means to me, Britt, is that this meant something. This is not like your all-star game anymore, right? This meant something to these players, and I think that right there is what needs to be a constant in the NHL. It got all kinds of eyeballs. All the other sports were like taking notes, being like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing."
What's kind of scary is that we are sending Tkachuk like half of the Florida Panthers back pissed.
I know. It's like, oh, great.
So they may very well just come back and take over the world. I don't know. I think that was very hurt in the final game. I mean, he certainly wasn't himself. Losing McAvoy was such a blow. And then
no Matthew Tkachuk. Yeah.
So isn't it interesting how they were kind of have had to leave everything vague and make up the rules? Would you, if you're making the rules, say that if Makar is injured, you bring someone in, it's a full sub in, sub out, like Makar has to go home if he's going to sit out and you bring someone in, or if Makar comes back in, you have to send, because they played, did I just say Reinhardt? Hart? Well, who's Makar's?
No, I know, yeah.
But I thought that was pretty annoying that they got to keep both of them because their roster wasn't spread evenly.
Yeah, I think what you need to have is an injury reserve go with the team.
Yeah.
For that exact purpose of an injury replacement. However, it's tough because Makar missed one game but then came back for the next, right? So it's like, where's that, where's that line going to be drawn, and how will it work, right? It wasn't very clear. So I would agree on that back end. Now, ultimately, do I think that made the ultimate difference? No.
But you know what might have made the difference is Jack Hughes or Quinn.
Well,
Quinn,
if you ask me,
did they not get him cleared before they did that to us? That was so wild.
If you ask me, the big difference is what my second point to this game was going to be, and that's Jordan Binnington.
We could have put him in. He didn't.
My question is, how is it he could almost choke away a game against Finland that they had a 4-goal lead on? Then he turns into an absolute stone wall.
And that's
the last 8 minutes of the third period and all of overtime. How?
I asked Michael, how do you handle a goalie that is the most elite, otherworldly, and the most blessed, lucky guy that ever walked the earth? But when he's not, he's mediocre.
He's Swiss cheese.
If I were to try to plot out the best way to get Jordan Binnington back to form, like his cup-winning form, it would be in the form of playing for his country, getting hyped up by John Cooper, and getting the call when he probably shouldn't have, knowing he was being doubted and
Mhm.
being told by the most powerful, compelling coach in the NHL that I believe in you and I'm choosing you, go prove them wrong. It was the perfect storm.
Oh, it was.
And so if you were like a fan-ish starting to doubt him and really soured on him, he's totally redeemed back. He's good. And if you hated him, you now hate. I mean, the hate is the gap of the love and hating Benny.
It just goes from a ravine to a canyon.
He is foul. And I won't, everybody knows all the things I could say, but he's just.
Oh yeah. My wife, who is also not a fond person of Jordan Bennington, she was having some choice words.
He's just.
Yeah, just insane how good he became in that later stages of that game.
Yeah.
But again, we could have done that, right?
Hellebuck was not bad. I mean,
No, he wasn't terrible.
And it's unfortunate not unfortunate for him and fortunate for us that he really did play that well and didn't get to slay that dragon, the blowing it dragon, because he played well, but nobody's really going to care that much because they still lost.
Yeah.
And he's going to be the epicenter of a lot of crazy goalie memes for the next like 5 years. Because that reaction of his eyes and the ref was terrifying.
That's my new favorite meme.
It's my takeaway.
Staring intently at the referee. It was beautiful.
Literally, it was laser beams. Yeah,
it was like he was killing him with his eyes, is what he was doing.
And that's what, if we were gonna lose, best case scenario would be that he blew it and just crapped the bed and made way for more talks of him not being a performer in the playoffs. But at least this didn't solidify him as not a fraud. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For the Avalanche's playoff sake.
That's also true. Okay, so that now aside, championship game aside, I'll go back and revisit your question that you had about the point system. I want to agree, but for some reason, my soul just disagrees with how the points were distributed.
I mean, technically, we got the same amount of points.
Yeah, because here's my thing. It's best on best, right? I think that 3 points in a win in regulation is fine, totally good.
Yeah.
I think what it should have been is 3 points for a win in any capacity. Because again, you have to keep in mind it's best on best, and they're rewarding you, which I understand, for doing it in regulation.
For like the NHL, do you think?
So if it were me,
it would be 3 points for like regular season NHL for anyone.
This, and I would say this would be my point system for anything, tournament, international, or NHL. It would be 3 points for a win of any kind.
Yeah.
2 points for a loss in overtime or shootout, and then 2 points for a shootout loss. I apologize. 1 point for an overtime loss, and then 0 for a regulation loss.
Yeah.
And I'll explain why. So my reasoning behind that though is a win, right? You know, that is what it is. 2 points in a shootout loss, because again, shootout is a skills-based thing, one-on-one, and that's what everyone calls it, a crapshoot, and it kind of is. So you should at least be able to get a majority of those points because you took the game that long, and it came down to just one guy versus one guy. Right? That's how I see it. 1 point for an overtime loss, which means you at least got something because you got past regulation, but you get less of half because you weren't able to complete it.
Right.
And then 0, obviously, for a regulation loss. So that's how I would want to have the point system go. Now, obviously, with international tournaments, there's no shootout, so it would just be a 3.1.0 points. That would make some stuff a bit more complex. So that's why I understand why they did the point system the way they did. I just don't quite agree with it. Anyway, but what about you? What did you think?
I don't know. I've fought over the overtime point. The overtime loss point is something that I've never I'm just going to probably feel we're not good, but then kind of justify it forever. So I just hate when teams that are not winning anything, but just pushing hard enough to stay relevant, but losing a lot, look, you know what I mean? They look like they're doing something in the point system. I don't know. I go back and forth. But then, like, if you're good enough to force an overtime, then obviously you're not bad. It's something I'll never settle on. But I love
and that's what made it so hard, is because, again, it's a best on best. Why would they not go to overtime if everyone's throwing their best players out there?
Yeah.
You know? So again, I understand
5-on-5 for 5 years until someone scores. If there would have been shootouts, I would have been I would have been manic. I'm very thankful for shots.
Yeah. But that's besides the point. And again, they understood the assignment and it played out well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that being said, final thoughts on the Four Nations. To me, big success.
Yeah.
Huge success.
360 whatever days till the Olympics.
I want this to be a permanent replacement for the All-Star break.
So did they rotating World Cup, All-Star, or are we done with All-Star?
Olympics, Four Nations, and then World Cup. And then maybe once have an All-Star.
I like the proposed idea of doing some kind of All-Star vibe type thing, like competition, just things like that.
Just a skills challenge.
In line with the draft. Yeah. It doesn't have to be completely decentralized, but like some kind of just fun, goofy, like not even a scrimmage, but I love the skill stuff. I really do, especially now that players are getting loud and boisterous, and I think it would be fun.
Yeah. The one thing that I am curious to know if they would do this is introducing 2 more countries, because obviously Russia's got plenty of players, politics and all that being the reason they can't compete. But then Czechia being the other one that has enough to sustain a team. Would it be a 6-nation face-off?
I don't know. And then people who aren't super hockey people, they're like, well, why don't you just do continents? It's because we need to see America versus Canada, and every other way.
That's the marquee game. Exactly.
When we draw cards and we get bottom part of whoever has enough people, and they get the Canada and the top part, we just draft whoever we want from various. But yeah, honestly, if we could just not have people who have to throw a fit about everything, I would be perfectly fine doing Canada and America, and then just divvy it up for the ones that don't have enough, so that we can see the best in them. You know what I mean? Find some way to make it compelling enough for and
I think I think ultimately, though, that's where the World Cup is going to come in, because you will have all these countries and not just strictly made out of NHL players. So I think that's where their redemption is going to come from. So I like the idea of an all NHL player based country system.
Well,
then it does feel like it's all-star caliber players. The only difference is an exchange of, a kind of meaningless little 3-on-3, who cares type of game. There is national pride on the line.
We have to realize too that so much of that, so many people went in expecting this to fail. So it's not like we started excited for the most part, but the refs are to thank for a lot of the vibes of this, because this is not how IHF stuff is reffed. I mean, this was definitely way more than most best on best have ever been allowed to allow, because you can't fight in world stuff because you'll get kicked out for the tournament. So honestly, this is going to become a marquee anger event, because they can play how they play in the NHL, unlike when we're playing,
and that's why I liked that it was an NHL sponsored event. I all the jerseys were great. All the camaraderie was fueled.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. I think I told you this. Allie bought me a Sidney Crosby Canada jersey. And now I'm like, well, at least I have the winning team's jersey from that year, so that's nice, I guess.
You know what? I'm to a point in life where like a good jersey is a good jersey, and I got guys I like everywhere. So
nope.
it's
You should see our collection of jersey. We have, you name the team, we have it, man. Like Ali surprised me a couple weeks ago with a Hartford Whalers old one. Oh my gosh, it's so fun. Anyway, that's beside the point. But the point we are trying to make, though, is that we thought the Four Nations was a success, and it needs to be a permanent fixture in some capacity in the NHL moving forward, because it all the best of the best, again, same guys that would have typically gone to the All-Star game now got to actually compete, and it meant something. They actually put their souls and their hearts into it, and it made it for
how that anger will carry through the season too.
Exactly. And I think that's perfect fuel, especially if you look forward to the rest of the season and into the playoffs next year for the Olympics. I mean, it just spells a wonderful time for everyone.
The only thing is, the injuries are brutal.
Win, you know?
Like with McAvoy out. I mean, Shea Theodore, he'll be back like after the playoffs start, whatever. But like, could you imagine being a Bruins fan and seeing McAvoy, like somebody like him, out for the rest? Is he done or getting better?
I think they're saying he may be done for the season, at least the regular season. So if they make the postseason, he might be back. But that is a drawback where it's like if they get injured, you know.
Matt Tkachuk, he might have like a severed femur through the backside when you consider the fact that he played through a broken sternum.
Yeah.
I don't believe ever that he's
and Vincent Trocheck played through a broken hand or finger or something like that. So I mean, typical hockey things.
Yeah.
But again, these things meant something to them, and they were willing to get injured for it. So,
but the owners and the GMs and the office staff, they're invested too, so they might have to just see it as a casualty of war, and you know what I mean? It's just
there's a lot of moving parts in it, but that's something that I'm sure will get tuned out with time.
All right, let's go to Avs.
All right, let's shift our focus here. There's not going to be a lot we're going to need to talk about because obviously the players coming back. Practices have resumed, and the Avs are going to begin their play tomorrow at the time of this recording. So that being said, there are 3 games that we will talk about, all of which, again, I'm going to keep it pretty simple just for the sake of time. It's getting back into that chemistry rhythm because you've been away for a couple of weeks. You need to kind of get the wheels going. So they
imagine like most of the team coming back from Cabo and Mac, like our boys are coming back.
I know there were a few that went to Miami, and there was a few that went to California,
blowing through the roof.
Yeah. So they have a game Saturday the 22nd, 4 p.m. Mountain Time puck drop against Nashville, which is the first of a back-to-back. And then the other of the back-to-back is in St. Louis, again, 4 p.m. Mountain Time puck drop. And then they host the New Jersey Devils Wednesday, 7:30 Mountain Time puck drop. All 3 of those key to the game, again, is going to be making sure you picked up right where you left off, right? Which in this case was a win over the Oilers and then a win over the Flames. So it's just whatever chemistry that you had, because there were some, because for the international side of things, you have to kind of unlearn the things and relearn things. Well, now you got to undo that and go back to the way you've been.
I think that they have such an advantage having 3 guys that are still in the zone. You know what I mean? Not checked out at all. But I think that if we come out hot, those are just 2 bugaboo teams, the St. Louis and Preds. If we come out hot, I think we can truly just plow them both into the ground and head on out. And New Jersey, they're just a weirdo this year. I got the hiccups.
Yeah. Maybe Quinn Hughes will be or Jack Hughes will be disappeared in that game too. Who knows?
This is my sad boys.
There you go. But again, that's kind of where it's going to take us, because it's just getting those bearings back. I'm giving them a week.
And way to go, schedulers, Scott. I do not understand the schedule this year, but like half the teams get home back-to-backs. And it's not like they don't have an idea of how many teams are going to be heavy on sending people to the. I really wish Kale had a longer rest, and I really hope that we can find places to let him take some load management breaks, because that was not a relaxing weekend or weeks for Mac or Kale.
Yep. I agree. So we'll have plenty more actual Avalanche to talk about next week. But obviously, the big point we wanted to make was how the Avs men did in the Four Nations face-off and then the Nations face-off as a whole. So we just wanted to get an episode in today, talk about it before we now jump back into the regular season, hopefully pick up right where we left off and keep the Avalanche train going into the playoffs. So other than that, that's going to kind of take us all the way to the end of the episode. Britt, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to talk about.
I don't think so.
Okay, well, I got to get you to bed because I know you're an hour ahead of me. So.
You see my eyes get it.
I know I'm starting to yawn myself internally, so I'm like, okay, maybe I need to go to bed. But thank you, everyone, for joining us on this episode of the Clusterfuck Podcast, part of the MHRT Network. Again, if you liked what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe and follow the MHRT Network so you can get notified when shows like the Clusterfuck Podcast go live. You can do so on the various social media platforms of your choosing. And if you do want to follow us, we ask that you do so at the Clusterfuck Podcast on Facebook and at Clusterfuck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads.
OnlyFans.
What's that?
Don't forget OnlyFans.
Oh, yeah, because we have that now. Yep. Brit.
Always.
Okay, you know what? I'm not even going to finish that sentence. I guess give it a try. Maybe you did something behind my back that I'm not aware of. I won't stop you, but if you do make money, I get half. That's what I'll just say to that. Okay. But thank you, no matter what, for joining us on this late night episode edition of the Clusterfuck Podcast. We hope you guys have an amazing weekend. We got 3 Avs games this week. Let's hopefully get 6 points out of it. And yeah, Avs hockey's back. And as always, go Avs, go.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down.